Hi, everybody. We have Mick with us today. And Mick, in 2 sentences, what was your business idea and how does it change the world?
My business idea was to give small business owners globally access to information to help them exit their business. And the reason that changes the world is if a small business owner gets their business to an exit, they usually live life on their terms and build more freedom.
Great. So it's quite unusual, I think, to think of starting the business with a uh, with of exiting it. Because I think usually people think of having this business forever or for the lifetime. How does it
I
change
agree. I mean,
the approach? Because I like the approach, but how does it change the mindset of the owner or the approach of the business when you start with this uh, end in mind?
it's a good point. And, I think back to a lot of the businesses that I've founded, and I think the one thing I did well, sometimes bad, but I always had it was a big vision for like what the future could be, right? Because if you don't have that in place, it can become pretty lonely and not that exciting.
Hmm.
But I think that there is a lot of things that if you think exit ready, that you could do at the start. It doesn't mean you have to sell, but building an exit ready business just builds a better business. And there is a lot of mistakes that can happen if you don't do that at the start. So I think part of it is you've got to start before you're ready, which I'm a big fan of, and you are too.
Hmm.
You got to get going because you'll never have an exit if you don't have any customers. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's probably good to think about what does the end look like. Maybe what kind of market do we want to be in? What IP do we need to maybe sell the business, and all those things that you could do at the start, or at least be thinking about. So you're like creating the business the right way from the start. Funnily enough, like just most people, they actually realize they actually forget that they are an investor themselves in their own
Hmm.
business.
Hmm.
So I often say like being exit ready for investors is you. You're the investor. So like why else are you getting into business, right?
Yeah.
Have fun and build something you're proud of, and hopefully make life a bit easier.
Hmm. So, how did you came to this moment of being? Have you ever considered to have a regular job, or were you entrepreneur from the very beginning?
Yes, I'm 35 years old now. I started my first bank, 150 Australian dollars, and I spent $142 registering my first business name. And then I grew that business over 10 years to a business that was valued close to $40 million at its peak.
Hmm.
And I was very fortunate to go on a very interesting journey of, uh, being acquired, acquiring businesses, hiring people, building global offices, and all these things. And then since then, I've started up a lot more businesses and got addicted to that starting and scaling and selling and building value. So I think I'm a bit unemployable.
I believe that, yes. So, what would you suggest, or how would you advise people who want to make a business or be entrepreneurs? How do they start?
Well, I think there's a philosophical thought that I like to think about, and it's on the wall behind me, which is purpose, people, planet, profit. So for me, this is my 4 Ps of life, and I go into this in my Exit Ready program, which is purpose. Why are we doing this? It has to answer something bigger than just money.
Hmm.
People, who are going to be the people on the journey? What kind of values do we want to live by? What type of people? Planet, how can business become a force for good as you're going on that journey?
Hmm.
And profit, how can you build a lot of profit and value out of the business, right? So
Hmm.
I think you got to love it, right? Like you have to love what you do,
Yeah.
because genuinely it is never an easy road. It's super hard to build a business. It's super hard to build a business even more and more successful. So like building a business to one staff member is one thing, but building it to 10 and 100 is completely different. Um, so you got to love it. And also you just got to get started.
Yeah, great. So, what surprised you the most on your entrepreneurial journey?
What surprised me the most? Wow. Well, I think there's a lot, there's a lot that I could say. Probably how hard some industries are, like I think, there's a fair bit of naivety when you're young,
Mhm.
and I'm glad that I had the naivety to start some of my businesses because if I didn't have that naivety, I never would have started.
Mhm.
But I think, you know, I'm often surprised. I'm often surprised about people, to be honest. Like I think people largely um, finding the right people, being able to understand people who will do what they say, who you can trust from the start. Um, you know, radical authenticity, like just being direct and authentic. There's a lot of waffle out there in business, and I think it's a lot easier when you work with people where you can just say it how it is
Mhm.
and move on with it. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm surprised by a lot of things every different day. Depends on which day you get me.
Because a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, tell me that what most surprised them is that it never gets easier.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That's also true. And just some industries are how hard it is, right? Like you think if I only get here, everything's fine. You
But
know,
it
when I
never.
get the first $1 million contract, everything is awesome.
Yeah.
When I get to here, when I get to here. So I think you never get there, right? It's all the journey. That's why you have to love what you do and you got to feel like it's making some bigger impact.
Yeah. I think that's correct. What would you advise someone who would start? Uh, like you said, love the journey. That's one of the things that is uh, really the fundamental. And how do you hire people, or how do you find the people that accompany you on this journey? Because you said people are one of the piece,
Mm.
one of the things that are really important in this
I'm
concept.
really, I'm really focused when I'm building businesses. I'm really focused about where my strengths are going to lie and where they're not going to lie. You know, so I've made this mistake a lot where you think you can do everything and you're the best at everything,
Hmm.
and and to a degree, like early on, you kind of have to be a generalist. You know, I think in the first $1 million of revenue, you have to understand branding, marketing, selling, your product, finance, bookkeeping, web development. You know, you have to be a generalist at everything. But then 1 million to 10 million, you've got to be then very good to understand who's going to be the right person to do this stuff and how do I incentivize them on the journey.
Hmm.
So like now I think a lot more lazy than I used to. I think I try and constantly be lazy in my mind because I need a lot personally. I need a lot of thinking time. I'm a lot better now as a visionary and a guide and a mentor for people as opposed to a doer. I've had several years of doing the whole running of a business, but most businesses depends on which one I have. There's a better leader than me,
Hmm.
much better.
Hmm.
I'm not really a good guy to run a business, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
To run the day to day of a beverage business or an FMCG business or a software business. So I think that the key is to find people who maybe don't want to take a risk on starting their own business, but they maybe want to take a little bit of a risk, and
Hmm.
they become great kind of partners or employees with equity.
Hmm. So regarding your offer, what are you offering, and what do you bring to the table for for the people?
Yeah, sure. So if we're talking about Biz Builders, so Biz Builders is we're a new small business platform. And we have a growth circle like monthly community subscription which you can join, and when you join Biz Builders you get access to, you know, our community, hundreds of like ready to use documents in your business and ebooks, access to like big discounts with like accounting platforms and CRMs and various kind of other tools,
Hmm.
all of our live events that we do, and there is some AI software supporting there, which will connect to your systems and give you live advice about what you should be thinking about or doing in your business.
Hmm.
And then you can go on the journey of joining the Exit Ready program, which we will unpack your business in 90 days and get you ready to exit or think like an exit. So yeah, so I think so yeah, you know what we're trying to do is give small businesses that are launching or scaling access to like masterclass level advisors in their pocket. Rather than paying thousands and thousands of dollars, they can just access it via our app, and they can get going and get growing.
Excellent. What do you think is uh, the most common mistake that people or business owners do, especially at the beginning? Because I think that's the most crucial.
I think if we're talking about people who are just launching, I think
Yeah.
often it is waiting too long
Hmm.
and building perfect plans and perfect financial models and perfect structures. There is no time like the present, and there is never a perfect time to start a business, ever. There never has been in history. There is always something against you.
Yeah. Excellent.
Marketing's expensive, tariffs are an issue, whatever, staff are hard. There's never anything, there's never a good time, right? Because if it was good, everyone would do it. Um, Largely, actually, we saw good times after COVID. There was a lot of money going around and a lot of
Hmm.
good times. A lot of people started, but they didn't build business the right way. And now the economies are straightening up a bit. They're having a lot of challenges. So I think it's good to build a business in a hard time. So just get started.
But do you think that right now it's hard time? Because I think it's actually the easiest time ever to build a business, because you have all these, I don't know, resources at your disposal, and also you can do free marketing on social platforms without with of course some engagement from your side, but you don't have to pay for advertising or flyers or I don't know TV ads that we used to, I don't know, decades ago. Right now you can do everything for free. Just you have to do the engagement, and
Yeah.
here you are.
You got to use a lot of hustle and a bit of muscle, right?
Yeah.
I think you're right. Like to get to the MVP stage, it's never been an easy time, right? You can code up software on AI tools, you can talk on social media, you can get the product out there. I think to prove the key thing you're trying to do in that launch phase is prove up what your business looks like, what the market wants, and what the pricing is. Then when you get scaling, is it a good time? I don't know. It depends on the country you're in. There's goods and bads at the moment, right? Like money's getting expensive, so people are concerned about discretionary spend. But as I said, there's no easy time to get off the ground. Is it easier as you get bigger? Possibly no, but possibly yes. We'll never know, but because no one has a crystal ball, right? So it's like I started my first company just after the GFC. It was quite possibly the worst time ever. But the good thing was no one else was really starting businesses then.
Hmm.
So the only challenge nowadays is it's easy to get started, but a lot of people are also getting started. So you've got to be even more focused and more niched, and just be willing to do the work over and over again. I think starting is one thing, and then continuing is another thing, right?
So what do you think about co-founders? Do you think you should have them, or uh, can you start alone? What do you suggest?
Yeah, it's a good point. So I've been a founder solo and co-founder.
Hmm.
I don't know what I would vote for. I would say I'd lean more towards co-founder
Hmm.
if I can find someone with synergies.
Hmm.
Uh, and that is very hard. Sometimes now, to be honest with you, I'm looking for talent, particularly younger talent, and I'm
Hmm.
like, find me someone who's young with hustle, with a little bit of an idea, and I will find a business for them to help build. Because I think what we're missing nowadays is the attitude, right?
Hmm.
So one of my recent businesses, I found a young guy who was 21, very smart. We were building an alcoholic beverage company. And I thought this kid is so smart. How do I build a business? How do I give him a business to partner with him because he's going to do something great? You
Hmm.
know, but I think nowadays, yeah, you know, if you can find a co-founder that's obviously got a set of skills, but at the same time, sometimes that is also impossible to find. So you don't want to spend a year finding a co-founder, and then all of a sudden you could have launched maybe got some other people in the business, not necessarily as co-founders, but as executives with equity or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard too many times, like, "Oh, we're not going to launch until we get a co-founder," you know, and I
So,
think that's not the right approach.
do you suggest if there's no good co-founder, they just find Mick Spencer and work with him?
I'm always looking, yeah, but I mean, I'm always looking at opportunities. But I think it's like just get started. There's join communities like Biz Builders, reach out to people, test your idea. And also like if you there's pros and cons, but if you do it alone, then you at least have more control, more equity, so you can be more friendly with like executive teams. So if I own 100% of something and I can't find someone else as a co-founder, I could give away 20% to equity holders. Whereas if I'm co-founder, I'm 50-50. We may get there faster, but there may be a falling out as well. And then there's not
Hmm.
much equity to go around for others. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it's some interesting thoughts.
Yeah. So, if you would start again, would you do something different? What would be a piece of advice you'd give to your younger self if you start again right now?
Yeah, I think I would I would definitely understand kind of, you know, what the future could look like. So I would launch quicker, but then I would quickly iterate based on what the market is telling me. I think I've spent too much time knowing in my gut that I should be changing something. But I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm really fixated on this idea. And
Hmm.
then it becomes late and you see the market not adopting and you have to change. So I would launch quicker, and but I would iterate the business quicker based on the customer feedback because, nowadays the customer market is moving so quickly, you
Hmm.
cannot stay on your idea. And I would also listen more to people. In my early days, I didn't listen enough.
You were the smartest guy, and
That's right. Whereas now I just try to be the dumbest guy and like have the idea and find the smartest people.
yeah. So, what was would you say, the most rewarding part of this entrepreneurial life?
I mean, I love creating things. I think for me, I've created a lot of brands that have grown to multi-million dollar ventures around the world. And it's pretty cool when you've come up with an idea or you've been a part of a team and you've worked on something unique and then you've seen other people enjoy it. Um, I think it's like that's the most rewarding part, right? And I think just the journey is the most rewarding. Like you're constantly learning. It's like it's the hardest sport, right? Because the more you do, the bigger you get, the harder it is. It's not like it gets
Hmm.
easier. So everything is. It just makes you sharp, and I think the journey is what is the most rewarding for me because you're always humbled. You think you know something, and then all of a sudden, what you did was wrong, and you're like, "Wow, okay, I've got to," So, and then I think nowadays maybe my role is a lot different. So I love seeing people succeed in the business I've helped to create. Like that to me gives me a lot of heart, um, and freedom. The freedom. I got two young kids. I work with whoever I want, whenever I want, on whatever I want. So I like the freedom that entrepreneurship gives you. If you're fortunate enough, you can make some money. Um, Sweet as. But yeah,
Uh, okay, great. Because I think a lot of people go into this entrepreneurial world thinking, okay, I'll get a lot of money and I will not do anything. I'll just lay on the beach, drinking and doing nothing. But I think that's the wrong perspective, or the one that you'll never get there. Of course you can do that for some weeks, but actually if you like the journey, like you said, you're always uh, into this mentality. Okay, I will do this and this and this, and you just enjoy that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you've got to just fall in love with the journey, right? Because the money, the money comes, you have to think financially literate. Like, that you've got to understand your numbers, and you've got to understand how big the pie can be. But I think that's the game, like that's the fun part of it. I think you've got to wake up and just love what you do and feel like you're making an impact, because if you don't, then it will be pretty
Hmm.
lonely. Um, but it's definitely, it's definitely not easy, and nor should it. So, I think if you're looking for that, I think there's nothing wrong with like wanting the freedom, but you've also got to do the work.
Absolutely.
You've got to be willing
Uh,
to do the work.
So, what would you say is the best business advice you received, or perhaps the worst one?
Well, I think honestly, the best business advice I've ever had is who you marry and who you go home to. Because, a guy who founded about a $5 billion company gave me that piece of advice one day. And I remember asking him, like, what's the big thing that that you have? And he said, who you go home to.
So,
And I think the reason is whilst entrepreneurship is fun, it can be incredibly tiring and it can be incredibly
hmm.
stressful. So being able to switch off and have someone in your corner is very
Hmm.
important. So that's important. Um, the worst piece of advice, the worst piece of advice for me largely comes around money, and I think it's when people have wanted, or like it's quite technical, but a lot of it's around um you know like, don't worry about the money, we'll figure it out at a later time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with that kind of
Hmm.
approach to business. I think that I've seen too many relationships in business break down
Hmm.
because of money. So when money's involved, just be black and white, and authentic.
Right. What about the I don't know, mentorship and coaching? You're doing this, and I think it has a lot of impact. But people are still not quite into it. I think it's common in sports, or you don't have the top athlete, or I don't know, a team uh, without a coach or coaches, but it's not that common in business. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, I kind of fell into coaching largely because a lot of people who were building small businesses wanted me to help advise their business, because I'd had some
Hmm.
successful exits. So I kind of fell into it, but then I fell in love with it because of the difference you could make. I think you're right. I've always had a coach personally for different areas of my life. Like, I've got a coach for surfing, for training, for my businesses. And I've always had that because the benefit of a coach is they can they can focus on what matters. When I think there's so many levels to a business, when you're running it or in it, you cannot sometimes see the forest through the trees. Whereas someone experienced in that area can just help you skip, so much time and money. And most of the time, if you have a good coach, you will 5 or 10 or 50x the investment on one or two key
Hmm.
decisions. So, but also, a coach is not going to change your world unless you do
Hmm.
the work. So I think if you've got a coach, you've got to do
Hmm.
the work, because there's a coach is not going to be doing everything
Hmm.
for you. They're going to guide you in the right direction. I think it's important to find a coach that is skilled, that has the experience that warrants the where you are at. But you need to know going into it that you're going to have to do the work
Hmm.
as well.
So, as you are a coach and you are building businesses and help them, what's the biggest challenges the uh, people have when they start, and how do you help them with that?
Yeah, I think I help people often try and remember why they started in the first place. So I'm helping usually seven-figure businesses. So one to $20 million
Hmm.
businesses. On Biz Builders, there's a lot of people who are launching, so we get access to these people through our community. But I'm often helping people who are many years in business. They may be quite frustrated with where they are. They may be thinking of selling, or they want succession planning, or they're sick and tired of it and they want to change. What I try and do is apply some like basic exit ready skills for their business to like remove them out of the day to day, look at the purpose again, think about why they started this in the first place, and hopefully bring back a bit of love for their business. And usually, if they start to think of it like an investor rather than just a doer, they can actually see what's happening. I think too many small business owners buy themselves a job and then they end up growing to hate what they do.
Great. So we are about the end. Were there some final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, I think it's great what you're doing, getting people to get their idea going. I think, I've always thought, like, don't go pitching your business on like, and sitting around for a year for something to happen. Like no one else is going to start it except you. So just go and get out there and get it started. So I think it's great. I encourage people to start
Yeah,
before they're ready.
thank you. And I think that's your philosophy too. And I think what most people do is and do wrong is that they think about it too long and don't get out and don't try. Like you said, you should that your you would do differently is start earlier and do the repetition and do the changes more rapidly, and because the market is telling you what's right, not your mind and the things you are doing in your head.
Yeah. You got to build a plane while you're
Yeah,
flying it, right?
excellent. Well,
You
thank you.
know.
It was a lovely talk and I really enjoyed it. Thank you for being with me, and see you again. Bye.
Take care.